Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are and when you're listening to this. This, of course, is Video Comic Cuts. Long-term readers of Comic Cuts will know that I did a series of videos during the lockdown and pulled the plug on them, not so much because I was not enjoying doing them, but because we were coming to the end of finishing off the Longbow books. When I last spoke to you, I was still proofing the books and decided that I needed to concentrate on doing that and finishing them rather than producing the videos, which were taking a little bit of time. It was taking me a whole day to film and to edit down the videos. So I decided that the best thing to do was to concentrate on the books, and I'm pleased to say that they are now available. The last time I spoke, I was still proofing the books. Well, we completed that and I'm really happy with them. I now have the payment pages sorted out on Bear Alley Books blog, and there's one or two little links that I need to put in, but they should all be in place by the time you see this. After all this hard work, I'm really hoping that the book goes down well, and I'm looking forward to getting some feedback. What I've done is set up a page where you can order both books at the same time, and you'll get 10% off, and obviously you'll get combined postage, which will save you a little bit of money as well. And I've ordered 50 copies to come to the house so that I can sign them, probably only be signing those 50 copies, and they will be the first 50 copies to go out. So get your order in quick, and not only will you get early view, but you'll get a signed copy with my awful scrawl on it. I don't sign many books because of the way Bear Alley Books is run. It's a print on demand, so often I won't actually see a copy of the book. It's directly sent out from the printers to the customer, so there's no opportunity for me to sign them. So this will be a rare signed book, unlike Terry Pratchett, who seemed to sign every book that came off the printing press. A Steve Holland signature is quite a rare thing, so I appreciate that it's not such a great incentive to buy the book, but you will get a slightly scarcer copy if you order early. I'm really looking forward to some feedback on these books, and I'm hoping that people will give some of the other books a chance if they like this one. We've reprinted a couple of nice stories by Bill Lacey in the past. The Eagles book is now collected as a complete volume, and it's a really good story. Also written by Mike Butterworth, who wrote the Longbow stories. I would also recommend the Bill Lacey's collection, The Man Who Searched for Fear, which also includes a couple of other stories as backups. Bill Lacey's a terrific artist. Lacey, surprisingly, was not one of the artists to work on Longbow, although there was an astonishing array of artists who did work on the strip. Jeff Campion, Don Lawrence, Keith Shone, R. Charles Roylance, better known, of course, for Captain Hurricane, Jesus Blasco, Francisco Cueto, Juan Gonzalez Alacruz, Jerry Haylock, Martin Salvador, Frank Humphries, Rodney Sutton and Cesar Lopez. 12 artists of astonishing talent, all of whom contributed one or more episodes to the Longbow saga. It's been interesting working on the books because of the sheer number of different styles. I've been trying to post a few panels up on Facebook over the last week just to give people an idea of what these things look like. I've had a really good response to that, and I think that people are going to respond even better when they get to see the full pages, episode after episode. 74 episodes reprinted across the 2 volumes, and I think people will really enjoy them. And now, this. noticed, but thanks to the miracle of editing, I've managed to sneak off and have a cup of coffee. I wanted to talk about what else we've got coming up now from Bear Alley Book. We've got a couple of projects on the go. One is some novels by Gwyn Evans. Absolutely adore Gwyn Evans. He wrote Sexton Blake novels for the Sexton Blake Library and for Union Jack, and a fascinating character as well. He had something of a gadfly mind, a very humorous writer, would often come up with some very bizarre situations, and even science fiction elements in his Sexton Blake stories. He created the League of Robin Hood and Miss Mist and all sorts of other characters. He did a series of books about a character called Hercules Esquire, and I had all four. And with Gwyn now being out of copyright, sadly, he died very young. He died at only 38 years old. I thought that it would be nice to get them back into print, even just for the few readers that would be interested. Now, I know that there's not a huge market for these, because I wrote a biography of Gwyn Evans, which is still available from Bear Alley Books. It's one of my favourite books, bizarrely, but it's also one of the worst selling. It sold a couple of dozen copies, so I'm not expecting these books to have a vast sale. But one of the reasons for setting up Bear Alley Books was so that I could do some projects that I knew would not be troubling the bestsellers lists, like that biography of Gwyn Evans, but books that I wanted to do and wanted to be out there. So, so we've got the 4 Hercules Esquire books. They will hopefully be out sometime this autumn. So the main thing I'm working on at the moment is Bear Alley magazine, BAM for short. That was Mel's idea, and I kept on referring to it as BAM, and referred to it to other people as BAM. They now refer to it as BAM, so I am absolutely stuck with BAM as the title. But, you know, it's growing on me. It's short, it's memorable, so hopefully people will remember it. And be short? No, that's not what I mean. The idea of doing a magazine, I've been mulling this over for a while. In fact, as far back as the beginning of Bear Alley Books, one of the first things that I actually worked on after we moved, which was back in 2010, towards the end of 2010, I actually put together a dummy magazine just to see if it was possible to do. But we ended up going in a slightly different direction, doing books. I did the Mean Street Maps collection as a little hardback, you know, but in very limited numbers. And the first of the indexes, the Hurricane and Champion Index. The idea of going back to doing a magazine really came about at the beginning of this year when I was working on the Rocket book. When I started working on that, I got part way into doing it as a book, and it kind of struck me that it would have worked better as a like a special issue of a magazine, because Rocket itself was not too widely known as a title. I mean, it's a fascinating story. I think that people who bought the book will agree that it works as a book, but I think it would have worked equally well as I said, a special edition of a magazine, you know, sort of like a one-off issue. So there were a number of essays and articles that I wanted to do that fitted a magazine format far better than what they would have done in book format. So the idea of doing a magazine kind of lodged in my head, and there was material that I had already written some years ago, including a partial history of British pocket libraries, which I wanted to expand. It's the 70th anniversary of the release of Cowboy Comics, which was the first British comic pocket library. There's other essays that I want to see in print. There's some material on Louis Bermeo that I prepared a long time ago when I had hopes of reprinting Johnny Future. Well, of course, Rebellion have done a really good job of reprinting that now, and this seems an apt time to drag that out of the bottom drawer and shake off the dust. There are other essays that I did a piece about how Italian artists began working in the UK in the 1950s, for instance. I need to look at that, see what I can do with it, but it'll make a very interesting essay for a magazine. What I want to do is get some sort of balance between longer pieces and interviews, give people some space for interviews, and shorter pieces. I'm not ruling out a 1 or 2 page essays, 1 or 2 page interviews, in fact. I'd like to get some reviews, but I mentioned this on Bear Alley a couple of weeks ago, but to very little response. So if anybody would like to review some material, whether it's new comics, old comics, the Treasury of British Comics reprints, or anything like that, please do get in touch. My email address you can always find at the Bear Alley Books website or the Bear Alley website. I'm not sure what to do about news. It might be possible to do some previews, but I'm kind of exploring a number of different avenues, and we shall just have to wait and see. The first couple of issues are going to be a bit scattershot, because a lot of it will depend on whether other people are willing to contribute, or I have to fill a whole magazine myself. I know I'm quite capable of doing that, but I must admit I'd rather not. I prefer magazines that have a number of different voices, rather than just mine. And also, because I am head cook and bottle washer at Bear Alley, I'm also going to have to sit here and design the pages and sort out the printing, address envelopes at the end of the day. And that means that if I'm writing everything as well, the magazine is going to be every 6 months. And I'd much rather have a magazine that comes out quarterly, or indeed bi-monthly. Whether that actually happens or not, as I said, a lot of it will depend on whether I can draw people into my web of intrigue and see if they'll actually contribute stuff. And we'll just have to wait and see what we get. I'm partway through writing material for the first issue and the second issue. We've had a couple of offers of material from other writers as well, which I'm rather pleased about, and we will just have to wait and see what emerges. The first issue I am hoping to have out by October, so that gives me a deadline. At the moment I haven't even written half of it, so yeah, October. We shall see. If you do want to contribute, or you think you have something to contribute, please do get in touch. I'm a broad church when it comes to comics, so my interests date all the way back to the 1860s and the very early children's story papers, and all the way through. I still read 2000 AD. If we look at it as a magazine about the history of British comics, I look at it and say, well, history is still being made. There are artists currently working in 2000 AD who may have been working there for 10 years, 20 years. I'd definitely be interested in interviews with many of the artists and writers and creators who work for 2000 AD, for the Judge Dredd magazine, for Commando, for Beano. There are still a number of traditional British comics out there, and they all, every creator deserves to be interviewed and written about. So don't think that I am solely going to be concentrating on comics from the 1950s or 1960s, which is kind of my era, even though I grew up reading comics towards the end of the 1960s, but a lot of the artists that I liked, and therefore a lot of the artists that I collected as I started collecting comics, started work in the 1950s. So that became kind of my area of expertise. But I appreciate that a lot of people out there would have been reading comics in the 70s and the 1980s even. And I want to cover that too. So if you think you can help, please do get in touch. I will treat any suggestions sympathetically, and I won't reject any out of hand. Okay, well, I think that should be enough. I hope you'll all now rush off and order the Longbow books. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a late night because although it doesn't take that long, I got quite good at editing this down. But then you have to look through it a couple of times to make sure that it's all hanging together and the edit has you've not chopped out anything that you wanted and you've not left in anything that you don't want. And then it takes time to upload to YouTube, and then you have to look through it. I watch it through again, and sometimes I've been up until 2 a.m. trying to do these things. I'm hoping that I can get this done by midnight. So anyway, if you try and talk to me tomorrow, or you email me tomorrow, and you don't get an instant response, you'll know where I'll be. I'll be in bed, knackered. I shall do another one of these videos at some point, I am absolutely certain. But I hope you're all staying safe. It's still a confusing situation out there. You know, we're being told that things are getting better, you know, and there's talk of schools reopening and shops reopening and everything like that. But we're still getting 1,000 new cases a day here in the UK. So, you know, treat everything with caution. And, you know, hopefully we'll all see each other out at the other end. All right, okay, that's the preachy part over. I'll see you again soon. Bye. Bye-bye.